Book Summary, Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow. Author, Yuval Noah Harari. Chapter 1, The New Human Agenda. Throughout history, humanity has been haunted by three forces that seemed uncontrollable: famine, plague, and war. These forces were not only recurring but also seen as divine punishment, an unavoidable part of destiny. But entering the third millennium, humanity, thanks to science, stable politics, and global cooperation, has achieved something unprecedented, taming these three monsters. This does not mean that famine, plague, and war have disappeared. But they are no longer unavoidable disasters as they were in the Middle Ages. Large-scale famines, like the one that killed 15% of France's population in the late 17th century, or the Black Death that decimated half of Europe in the 14th century, are now just memories. Ebola in the early 21st century killed about 11,000 people, a modest number compared to what history has witnessed. And while wars still occur, in 2012, the number of deaths from diabetes, 1.5 million, was more than 10 times the number of deaths from armed conflicts, 120,000. We are living in the first era where humans can sit down and outline a completely new agenda for themselves. Harari argues that three major goals will shape the coming era: immortality, happiness, and divinity. Immortality is no longer a religious dream or miracle. It is being pursued through data, technology, and laboratories. Corporations like Google are investing in calico to cure death. Researchers like Aubrey de Grey and Ray Kurzweil believe that humans could live for hundreds, even thousands of years. Death, according to them, is not destiny but a technical problem that can be decoded and overcome. Happiness, though an eternal goal, has never been pursued as scientifically as it is today. Brain research, hormones, emotion-regulating drugs, and even genetic engineering are being developed to find the formula for positive emotions. When survival needs are met, happiness no longer depends on wealth but on the biochemical puzzle of emotions and cognition. Divinity is the final level. Humans do not just want to be healthier, live longer, and be happier, they want to transcend their biological limits. Through biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and cyborg technology, humanity is aiming for Homo Deus, godlike humans, beings capable of controlling life, even creating new life. What was once reserved for gods, creation, destruction, design, is now within human reach. Harari not only describes but also warns. These goals stem from humanistic thought, enhancing human value and power. But in the journey toward divinity, humans, if not careful, may render themselves obsolete, replaced by superior entities. While humanity focuses on power, questions of ethics, ecology, and survival risk being overlooked. This chapter sets a fundamental premise for the rest of the book: when humanity defeats its ancient enemies, will it be ready to face the enemies it creates itself? And if the ultimate goal is no longer survival, what will humans seek to define life? Chapter 2, The Anthropocene. For millions of years, life on Earth operated under two immutable laws: evolution through natural selection and existence within organic limits. But since Homo sapiens emerged and expanded from East Africa 70,000 years ago, these laws have gradually been broken. Instead, humanity, a primate species not physically superior, has become the planet's most powerful ecological force. This is an unprecedented event in the history of life, a single species reshaping the entire global ecosystem. Even in the hunter-gatherer era, sapiens' ancestors inadvertently caused mass extinctions. Before the invention of agriculture, they caused 90% of large animals in Australia and 75% in the Americas to disappear. Not out of malice, but because they were unaware that cumulative hunting could outpace the reproduction rates of large, slow-breeding animals like mammoths or giant deer. Today, humanity is no longer just part of the ecosystem, we are redesigning it. Over 90% of large animals are now humans or livestock serving humans, like cows, pigs, and chickens. Meanwhile, wild species like lions, tigers, or wolves are disappearing from the wild and surviving only in cartoons, fairy tales, or TV shows. Germany, the birthplace of Little Red Riding Hood, now has fewer than 100 wild wolves, compared to 5 million pet dogs. Ecological dominance doesn't stop at numbers. Humans have turned Earth into a single global ecological unit. Geographic barriers that once isolated ecosystems, like oceans, deserts, mountains, are now breached by planes, ships, and global transport systems. Sheep, wheat, bacteria from Europe are brought to Australia, rats, flu viruses from America flood every corner. Instead of evolving separately by region as in the Ice Age, everything is now mixed by human hands. Not limited to living entities, Homo sapiens also threatens to break organic boundaries. Instead of evolving through mutation and natural selection, humans are moving toward intelligent design, creating life as they wish, even extending into the inorganic realm like robots or artificial intelligence. However, with the status of gods over all species, the question arises, are we benevolent gods or selfish tyrants? In reality, modern civilization has pushed billions of animals into short, painful lives. Industrial chickens, lean pigs, dairy cows, though biologically surviving, are subjected to distorted lives in cages, hormones, and slaughterhouses. This chapter ends with a wake-up call. The Anthropocene is not merely the age of humans but evidence that absolute power often comes with irresponsibility. As we run the planet as a single entity, who, or what, will supervise these new gods of the ecosystem? Chapter 3, The Human Spark. Why did Homo sapiens, a small primate species from Africa, become the planet's overlord, while other species like elephants, tigers, or even ancient humans like Neanderthals were either extinct or domesticated? Harari argues that it's not due to superior intelligence or sharper tools, but the ability to cooperate flexibly on a large scale, the one essential difference that sets sapiens apart. Unlike ants or bees, which can organize thousands of individuals into a consistent but rigid system, humans can change their cooperation systems flexibly, responding to circumstances. And unlike primates like chimpanzees, which only cooperate with familiar individuals, sapiens can coordinate with millions of strangers through shared beliefs, specifically, fictional stories. We don't need to know each other to believe in the value of money, laws, or nations. We don't need blood ties to die for the homeland or defend religious honor. These concepts, though invisible and unverifiable by science, have superior power. They allow us to build empires, organize wars, and construct civilizations. A typical example is the U.S. presidential election. On a single day, tens of millions of people vote, follow legal procedures, and accept the election results, even if dissatisfied with the winner. This is evidence of a form of cooperation unseen in any other species on the planet. Harari refutes the idea that humans are special because they possess an immortal soul or higher consciousness. Modern science finds no evidence for the soul, and consciousness, seen as the flow of emotions and subjective experiences, is not exclusive to Homo sapiens. A hungry and desiring human can be said to have consciousness, but that does not imply a transcendent or immortal nature. What makes humans dominant is not a special gene or superior brain but the ability to imagine things that don't exist: gods, souls, nations, banks, human rights. A cat can imagine a mouse, but not Google or the European Union. Only humans can create a network of intersubjective entities, existing only in the shared imagination of many people. The irony is that while we cooperate to build society, these fictional stories also dictate our goals and morals. From the Crusades to concentration camps, from capitalism to communism, all are built on conventional myths. These myths are not wrong, but they are products of imagination, not nature. This chapter concludes that the spark that makes humans is not the soul or morality but collective imagination, which can mobilize millions to create new worlds. But Harari also warns, when imagination exceeds control, it can create cooperative systems that crush the humans they once served. Chapter 4, The Storytellers. While other animals live in two layers of reality, the objective external world like trees, rocks, rivers, and internal subjective emotions like fear or desire, Homo sapiens lives in a three-layered reality. Besides objects and emotions, humans create and believe in a third layer, imaginary stories, like gods, nations, money, or corporations. These stories shape social order. Since the cognitive revolution, humans have been creating things that don't exist in nature but have the power to organize millions of strangers into cohesive collectives. Things that seem fanciful, heaven, justice, human rights, the euro, national anthems, become the driving force for humans to love, hate, sacrifice, and fight. A vivid example is the Third Crusade in the 12th century. When Jerusalem fell to Saladin, the Pope launched a campaign to retake the Holy City. Thousands of knights from England, France, and across Europe set aside their conflicts to fight for a shared religious ideal. Harari details the journey of a young nobleman named John, who believed that if he died in battle, his soul would go to heaven, where angels beckon through golden gates. This belief was not mere fiction, it was nurtured by family stories, songs, stained glass, church sermons, and constant community affirmation. Harari emphasizes that the power of stories lies not in their truth but in how many people believe them simultaneously. An action, like voting, fasting during Ramadan, or marrying in a church, becomes meaningful because millions of others believe it too. This imaginary layer, what he calls intersubjective, is where humans create morality, laws, and politics. Notably, religions, according to Harari, do not necessarily require belief in gods. A religion is essentially a system of ethics and meaning beyond the individual, be it Christianity, Islam, liberalism, socialism, or nationalism. They provide answers to questions science cannot, like, should we build a dam that harms a few hundred households if it benefits millions? Stories also play a crucial role in determining what is real and what is fake. Harari invites readers to ask, does a bankrupt bank suffer like a cow separated from its calf? If not, why do we care more about saving banks than saving sentient beings? Modern ethical systems still revolve around collective stories, whether about free markets or universal justice, but sometimes overlook the biological reality behind them. This chapter concludes with a paradox: it is the imaginary that shapes history. Chapter 5, The Odd Couple. Science and religion are often seen as opposites, one based on experimentation, the other on faith. However, Harari argues that in reality, these two fields not only interact frequently but also co-create the modern world. Like a long-married couple, they argue and collaborate, differ but cannot do without each other. Science is the most powerful tool ever invented. It does not provide meaning or morality but focuses on understanding the world and turning knowledge into power, curing diseases, building dams, making bombs, developing AI. But to decide what to do with that power, like whether to build a dam that destroys a village to supply electricity to a city, science is completely powerless. The answer comes from religion or ideologies, systems that establish meaning and values beyond mere facts. Thus, Harari likens the relationship between science and religion to a modern covenant. In this, science does not destroy religious dogmas but actually helps realize them. We don't build hospitals and schools because science says so, but because we believe health and knowledge are good, and science is the most effective means to achieve those goals. Religion, according to Harari, does not necessarily involve gods. It is any ethical system that defines superindividual meaning and can guide collective behavior. Therefore, modern ideologies like liberalism, nationalism, or socialism are secular forms of religion. They are not merely political views but dogmas, not easily tested or refuted by scientific methods. A typical example is the Three Gorges Dam in China. Engineers, economists, and energy experts can calculate costs, water pressure, and electricity output precisely. But the final decision, whether to sacrifice hundreds of villages, millions of people, and an entire dolphin species for thousands of megawatts of electricity, is an ethical issue, not a mathematical one. No physical model can answer that question. Thus, any major scientific project needs guidance from the ethical stories that society believes in. However, this combination also poses many paradoxes. As scientific discoveries increasingly break old ethical assumptions, like the existence of the soul, free will, or natural equality between people, modern religions like liberalism begin to waver. If AI understands us better than we do ourselves, and if genes determine behavior, is there still room for the concept of free choice, which is the foundation of modern ethics? This chapter serves as a warning. Although science can dissect life into molecules and algorithms, it still cannot replace the need for meaning. In a post-humanist world, without strong enough stories to guide behavior, humanity may fall into an ethical chaos, where infinite power comes without a reason for existence. Chapter 6: The Modern Covenant. Harari begins this chapter with a shocking statement: modernity is a contract, and covenant that every human unconsciously signs from birth. It doesn't require you to read it carefully or give you the option to refuse. Like when you download software and hastily click I agree, the modern covenant is simple and concise: humans give up meaning in exchange for power. In the past, most cultures believed in a sacred cosmic script set by gods or natural laws. These scripts were unchangeable. Like Hamlet cannot voluntarily leave his role in Shakespeare's play, humans could not live forever or avoid disease. However, that script gave them something: meaning. They knew that despite enduring suffering, war, famine, all had a role in a larger plan, even if they couldn't understand it. The modern world has shattered that script. No longer believing that famine is divine punishment, we see it as the result of policy failures, climate change, or wars, things that can be measured, predicted, and remedied. Instead of praying, we invest in research, technology, and governance. As a result, humans possess unprecedented power, sending messages across continents in a second, decoding the genome for $100, creating antibiotics and vaccines. But the price of power is the emptiness of meaning. Without a cosmic director, without a sacred script, everything happens just because of physical causes, no moral consequences, no lessons from God. Everything just happens, shit happens, as Harari bitterly says. To maintain the modern covenant, society needs an operating principle: endless growth. If we want more medicine, better factories, faster healthcare systems, we need a stronger economy. A company wanting to produce new fertilizer needs to borrow from banks. Banks only lend if they believe the economy will grow enough to repay the debt. The entire system relies on the belief that the future will always be more expansive than the present. This belief, once seen as naive, has now become almost a global religion. From the US to China, from India to Turkey, political leaders stake their careers on boosting GDP. Singapore even ties ministerial salaries to national growth rates. Whether you are Hindu, Muslim, or atheist, if you want prosperity, you must kneel before the altar of economic growth. However, Harari poses a profound question: if we have everything, immortality, drugs, flying cars, endless energy, but no reason to live, is that truly progress? When power becomes infinite, will the moral emptiness consume us? Chapter 7: The Humanist Revolution. For thousands of years, humans sought meaning in supernatural forces: God, the Creator, fate, or natural laws. But in the modern era, humans turned inward to find answers. This is the core of humanism: meaning does not come from the universe but is created from human experience. Humanism is not an atheistic religion but a cognitive revolution. Instead of seeking divine will in scriptures or traditions, humanism teaches that each individual possesses a unique inner voice, the source of truth, morality, and beauty. We don't need the Pope to determine what is right, nor gods to reward or punish. A correct political decision is one that makes people happy. A beautiful artwork is one that touches emotions. However, like all major beliefs, humanism is not absolutely unified. Harari divides it into three main branches. Liberalism exalts the individual. Liberals believe each person is the center of their own universe, and the ideal society is one where everyone is free to follow their emotions and thoughts, as long as they do not infringe on others. Thus, the voter's ballot, the customer's choice, and personal emotions become measures of value. Beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, morality lies in the heart of the perceiver. Nationalist humanism expands I to we, the nation. It emphasizes the collective experience of the community, culture, traditions, and language. However, when national emotions rise too high, it easily leads to xenophobia and supremacism. From protecting polka dances to building concentration camps, the line is sometimes thin. Socialist humanism emphasizes equality of experience. If everyone is equal in emotions and life value, then social inequality must be abolished. Socialists value others' emotions more than their own. Your heart aches not only because you suffer but because you witness others suffering, and you act to alleviate it. Harari argues that since the 1970s, liberalism has surged, becoming the dominant global wave, especially after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Even protest movements like Occupy Wall Street do not truly oppose liberalism, they only demand a truly free market, not manipulated by financial corporations. Yet, behind the glory, liberalism faces unprecedented challenges. Technology is gradually shaking foundations once considered inviolable: free will, individual independence, and the right to choose. When AI understands you better than you do, when emotions can be programmed, will the inner voice still guide ethics? Harari closes this chapter with a profound question: if the entire modern universe is tied to human experience, what will happen when that experience becomes just a product that can be designed and replicated like any supermarket item? Chapter 8: The Time Bomb in the Laboratory. In 2016, liberal values like individualism, democracy, and human rights still dominate global ideology. But Harari warns that the philosophical foundation of liberalism, free will, is being shaken by modern science itself. Discoveries in biology, neuroscience, and computer science are uprooting the notion that humans are free, independent decision-makers. According to liberalism, you are the best person to understand yourself. You should listen to your heart, pursue your emotions, and decide your actions. But today, scientists claim, emotions are the result of biochemical reactions in the brain, either determined by genes, environment, or random, but not free. Harari cites brain scan experiments where participants were asked to press a button with their left or right hand. The fMRI machine could predict their choice before they were consciously aware of it, sometimes seconds in advance. From this, Harari concludes, we do not choose our desires, we only feel and follow them. Moreover, the concept of a unified self is also shattered. Famous experiments with patients who had their corpus callosum, the nerve bundle connecting the two brain hemispheres, severed show that the two halves can act contradictorily, and the self is unaware. The left hand closes the door while the right opens it, or the patient laughs without knowing why. Because the left brain, responsible for speech, doesn't know the information that entered the right brain, responsible for emotions. Thus, Harari likens the human brain to a country with two agencies, the CIA acting in the shadows, and the State Department, making up plausible reasons. And the worrying part is, you yourself believe that lie. The self becomes a spokesperson, not a strategist. Modern technology further exposes the fragility of free will. Researchers have created roborats controlled remotely via electrodes in their brains, forcing them to move as desired. Or brain stimulation devices help American soldiers enhance focus, control pain, even improve memory. And as algorithms get smarter, analyzing behavioral data from social media, Google, Facebook, they can know what you want before you do. Harari warns that if a system understands you better than you do, liberal democracy, which relies on voter choice, will collapse. This chapter is not just an analysis of scientific progress but a wake-up call about the silent yet radical overthrow of humanism. If humans no longer possess free will, all systems based on individual freedom, from education to law, politics to ethics, are at risk of collapse. Chapter 9: The Great Decoupling. Harari begins this chapter with a warning: intelligence and consciousness, once twin hallmarks of humanity, are beginning to divorce. For thousands of years, only conscious beings possessed intelligence, but the 21st century is witnessing the rise of non-conscious but superintelligent algorithms. This leads to a great decoupling, where humans are gradually sidelined from the center of intellectual, economic, and artistic systems. Today, computer algorithms surpass humans in many fields, from finance to healthcare, from image diagnosis to music composition. For example, the EMI program developed by Professor David Cope can compose music in the style of Johann Sebastian Bach. At a performance at the University of Oregon, the audience was asked to distinguish between three pieces, one by Bach, one by EMI, and one by a living composer. The shocking result: most of the audience thought EMI's piece was by Bach, while the original was mistaken for computer-generated. These advances are not limited to art. In medicine, Harari highlights the artificial pancreas, a system that controls blood sugar levels via sensors, an iPhone app, and an insulin pump, completely without human intervention. The algorithm not only records data but also analyzes, decides, and acts in real time. Even more concerning is that algorithms understand humans better than they understand themselves. A 2015 study based on 86,000 Facebook users showed that with just 300 likes, Facebook's algorithm predicted personality more accurately than the person's spouse. It could not only guess preferences but also influence decisions, from career choices to political voting. So, what is left for humans? Harari bluntly states, perhaps, nothing. If humans no longer play a key role in production, decision-making, or creation, are they still necessary in the social operating system? Professions once considered irreplaceable, like doctors, lawyers, artists, are now within the algorithm sights. Harari calls this the core challenge of the 21st century. When intelligence no longer needs consciousness, and when entities that feel no pain or emotions make decisions for us, do democracy, free markets, or even human rights still have meaning? This chapter concludes with a vision that is not exactly apocalyptic but certainly alien. Humans were once the heart of the world, but are being replaced by emotionless algorithms, step by step, part by part, not because they are evil, but because they are more efficient. Chapter 10, The Ocean of Consciousness. In this chapter, Harari expands the exploration of the role and future of human consciousness, the foundation of humanism, in the context of technology increasingly surpassing human perception and reasoning. Harari begins by noting that new religions no longer come from holy sites or churches but from laboratories, especially in Silicon Valley. He calls them techno-religions, new belief systems promising happiness, prosperity, and even immortality, but not through God but through algorithms and genes. We are witnessing two major branches in these religions, techno-humanism and dataism. In this chapter, Harari focuses on the more conservative side, techno-humanism, which still places humans at the center of the universe and seeks to upgrade Homo sapiens into Homo Deus, superior beings with enhanced intelligence, bodies, and minds to avoid being surpassed by non-conscious algorithms. One means to achieve this is brain-machine interfaces, like devices used by the US military that send electricity to the brain to enhance focus. These technologies, Harari argues, show that humans are beginning to merge with technology, moving toward a second cognitive revolution, similar to the first that helped Homo sapiens dominate the planet. However, Harari poses a crucial question: is consciousness truly necessary in the future? When intelligence and consciousness separate, and when non-conscious algorithms can drive cars, diagnose diseases, compose music, why do we need emotional, vulnerable beings like humans? Harari emphasizes that for organizations like the military or corporations, what they need is efficiency, not subjective experience. Consciousness is unnecessary but present, like the noise of a jet engine, loud but doesn't make the plane fly faster. Even more frightening is Harari's comparison of human consciousness to a small island in a vast ocean. We only know a few mental states. Most other forms of consciousness lie beyond our perception and definition. The truth is, we are sailing into uncharted waters, where the goals, limits, and values of consciousness are no longer clear. This chapter highlights the internal contradiction in techno-humanism. If we upgrade the brain to adjust desires and emotions, is the I we call ourselves still ourselves? Harari concludes that consciousness is the foundation of ethics and human rights but has no role in most modern technological systems. If the world continues to evolve toward needing only intelligence, consciousness, the source of culture, art, ethics, may be sidelined from history. Chapter 11, The Data Religion. Harari closes Homo Deus with a haunting concept, dataism, or data religion. This is not just a scientific theory but a new ideology, even a forming religion, that could replace humanism and shape humanity's future. According to dataism, the universe is a flow of data, and the value of any phenomenon or entity is determined by its contribution to data processing. Everything, from the movement of planets, a husband's jealousy, to Beethoven's melodies, is a manifestation of data patterns. Dataism combines two modern streams of knowledge: biology, humans are biological algorithms, and computer science, electronic algorithms can understand and replace biological algorithms. Under this lens, humans are not the pinnacle of creation but a temporary phase in the history of data processing. We are like microchips in a forming supercomputer, the Internet of all things. And when this network is complete, humans will no longer be necessary. We are just a stepping stone to a superior system. Dataism does not oppose humans, it simply does not see human experience as sacred. Value does not lie in emotions or cognition but in converting experience into data and pushing it into the global information flow. A human writing a poem and posting it online is more valuable than a wolf howling in the forest. Personal experience, if not turned into data, is deemed worthless. Dataism reverses the traditional academic pyramid. Instead of going from data to information, knowledge, and wisdom, it declares that humans can no longer process data adequately and must delegate that task to algorithms. Thus, dataism advocates for empowering algorithms, even in political, economic, artistic, or ethical decision-making. Going further, dataism could unify all sciences, from literature to biology, under a common language of data flow analysis. In the dataist world, Shakespeare and the flu virus differ only in data structure, both can be analyzed with the same mathematical tools. Harari also warns. If dataism becomes the dominant religion, humans may be treated like the animals they once marginalized. When no longer central to the data network, we will be seen as redundant. Then, Homo sapiens may just be a small wave in the cosmic data ocean, beginning with the cognitive revolution and ending in the silence of super non-conscious algorithms.